VIP Lounge at the Chinese Theatre with over 65 filmmaking teams. We're on our third episode, and we're stoked to be the official podcast partner of the 19th annual Oscar qualifying HollyShorts Film Festival. I'm your host, Indiana Underhill, joined by co-host Haley Royal. We're co-founders of Cinematography for Actors podcast. And who do we have sitting with us today, Haley?
Today we have with us the team behind It's Not the Critic Who Matters, Who Counts. It's not the critic who counts. This is Bill Bradley, star, executive producer, and Ridgley Curry, co-director. Does that mean that you co-directed along with Bill?
There's another
gentleman. There's one more director who
Awesome.
We aren't being graced with today.
But he'll be
in
here
soon.
Yeah, that's great. What I want to hear about is a little bit, we have 15 minutes, but I want to hear a little log line of what this film is about to get people into it before we start breaking it down a little.
Yeah, I mean, I think what our message we're trying to get across, this is a race in northern Minnesota. It's considered one of the world's toughest races. You pull a 40-pound sled with all your survival gear. You're supposed to go 135 miles, and it's an extreme cold.
Yeah.
And so in this film, this is my 10th attempt at it.
Oh, wow.
You're
Okay.
telling us that you do this.
Yeah.
You elect to do this.
Yeah, that's how we do it. And
Yeah.
it's a very crazy race, and I think it's like the message that we're trying to get across is not to quit on your
Yes.
dreams,
Yeah.
and that it's okay. And I never used the word fail because it used to bother me so much, but I use it now because I want to show people that it doesn't kill you.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Right.
So, because I used to say, oh, that was just, I took a turn, or I took a, everything was just, it wasn't a big deal to me.
Right.
But people all, you failed.
Yeah.
It's a terrible word, but failed means you're out there in the arena.
Yeah.
And you're fighting.
And how did you guys meet? How did this come together?
Yeah, we met. His niece originally was working with me, and I work with him.
Ideas for how to capture this. I know one of the things you said, one of the technical constraints was not actually being able to capture some of the racers because there was
only limited.
I know we heard the message, so how were kind of the visual cues you wanted to put into the film?
Well, this is our third installment of a docu-series.
Right.
We have six of them that we're doing. This is the third one. We just finished the fourth one. And the message, the story here is that with Bill, he epitomizes the meaning of it's not the critic who counts, or the Roosevelt story. And I can't think of anyone better to emphasize that. He really represents that.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. Can we talk technically? This is cold. This is freezing cold. You're carrying in gear, and only in certain places can you actually use that gear to shoot. So, Bill, when you are on your own for this journey, how are you private?
Oh, I think we don't have a lot of shots of that, because it is so cold.
Yeah.
If you even pull a GoPro out, it freezes in like a minute or two.
Yes.
And it goes dead,
Yeah.
So it's really not practical for me to be pulling those things out. So it was where there would be road crossings, or and then these guys would jump out behind a bush and then come talk to me.
Packages that you had in order to fight the cold when building your camera package out.
Well, I wasn't there, so the cinematographers that were there, they handled that pretty well.
Yeah.
Were they communicating with you to make sure this is going to be able to handle it, this will not? So if you want a certain look, we'll have to work around that? Were there conversations like that?
A little bit of conversation, but I left that up to them.
That's
I
great.
think
They're comfortable.
the main guy was from Minneapolis, so
He knew.
familiar with the cold and his equipment.
Yeah. I know one of the biggest issues that can happen as well as snow before.
I've had
Get me whatever you could get,
Yeah.
and we'll tell a story based on the fact that this is his 10th attempt.
Yeah.
10 times this
Yes.
guy's tried this. He's gotten pretty close to finishing, but he hasn't. And this was the anniversary, so I knew right then,
It's
the
gonna
center
happen.
of that story.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that made it easy to kind of
Tell
tell
that
the
story.
yeah.
And did you have multiple iterations of the edit then? Because you had all this footage, then you're like, get me whatever you can get. And then you get into, the edit, and then you're like, is it Is it like, oh, I kind of thought it was going to be this story and it changes more into this? Or was it always like, yep, we're going to that shot there. Yes, let's go back to him. Let's get more of the extreme cold. What was that process like?
Well, we took whatever we got on the film and we crafted around the idea of that he's trying to get to the finish line.
Got it.
And he doesn't make it. So we knew that at the end, basically, when he quit, when he could no longer go any further.
Yeah.
So that was the cost of, our direction. So.
And how did you hear about this race?
I think I was in Alaska and I did 100 miles. I did the Susitna 100 up there, which I thought, that Alaska, it's the end all be all.
Yeah.
And I finished that on my second attempt, but hit blizzards and it was craziness. And then these guys are all talking, well, you think this is crazy. There's this race in Minnesota that's really crazy. And I literally, because it's so dangerous, I went to a survival camp right before I went.
Oh, wow. To learn
like
kind
a
of
weekend.
what you need to do.
Yeah, even though I'd raced in Alaska,
goodness.
still to know. And I really don't remember a lot about the survival camp, except one thing you got to do is you got to get in your sleeping bag while you still can.
Right.
That's your main thing, because what's happened is you get hypothermic out there, and this actually happened to me on my first race. I was out there and I was at like 73 miles. I couldn't find where the checkpoint was and having some problems, and then I thought it was closed, and so I was really depleted, and I started shaking like this.
I bet. Yeah.
And there was a building there that I thought somebody was going to be in, and they weren't. It was all empty, and I'm beating on the windows, and I'm like, okay, what did I learn at my survival camp? Get in your sleeping bag while you still can. So I'm like, run over my sleeping bag, and I'm literally hyperventilating, like, and I'm trying to open this bag, and I'm shaking so bad, and I go, you gotta get it open.
Yeah.
And I got it open, and then I had never quit an event before that, because I was really successful, and I pulled the sleeping bag over my head, and I said, I quit.
Yeah. That's insane. I wonder, what's crazy is because when you're getting into that quitting mode, I wonder how that comes across on camera, because it's almost like you have to create that build, because for you it's a build, and so for us it's like, is it a cutting pace thing? Is it we go more to different shots? Like how is that build created around the successes and the failures? We don't love the word, but we're using it. Yeah.
Well, we use it because I'm facing what I
know.
Hate to hear,
Yes,
and I want
exactly.
everybody else to face it.
Yes. Yeah.
Bill is unique in his personality.
Right.
He's upbeat constantly. I don't care what the situation is, how tough it is. He's just always upbeat, and he always says something unique and to the point. So we count on that, and that's what we've lived off on all the documentaries that we've done so far. Is this uniqueness in his personality and how he approaches everything.
And you're doing a 6-part series. You've done 3 thus far, and it's always together?
Yes.
Very cool. And so what are the other 3?
The first one was Pushing Mercury.
Okay.
We're here
Great.
at HollyShorts.
And try to pull a cart across Death Valley with all my survival gear on one of the hottest
goodness.
weekends ever on Earth. It hit 160 in the sun.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard.
Wow. Yeah, sounds like it.
This is kind of mushy, but Bill, would you say that the critic you're attempting to discount here is maybe yourself?
Oh. Therapy. Yeah, I think we are the toughest on ourselves. I'm brutal on myself. I have a life coach that I talk to 5 days a week, because Tom Brady talked to somebody when he was like, when I listened to his interviews, and before his football games at Michigan State, or I think it was whatever it was, and he would talk to the assistant athletic director, and I said, oh, that's like my life coach, and I'm more screwed up than Tom Brady, because I was talking to her once a week. I go, we need to talk every day.
Yeah. I love it.
So yeah, she keeps my critic quiet.
Nice.
Not so hard on me,
I'd love to ask one final question before we wrap up, because these are such short interviews, but I'm so excited that we got one with you guys. Is the relationship that you two have, obviously because you're doing these 6 films together, you've completed, you're halfway through. How has your workflow changed based off of the first time you worked together versus now, and how do you think it will continue to change?
I believe in the process, and I've just learned to trust what he brings to the table.
Nice.
And express that, because he's open.
And I think it's a mutual trust.
The vulnerability,
I
the trust.
and I trust him too, to put the right message out on the screen.
Wow. That's so incredible.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
When is your film screening? When can people see it?
Friday, we're in the 5 o'clock.
Doc
Block.
3 block.
Okay, awesome. And then on BitPix as well.
BitPix as well.
Yeah,
Awesome.
BitPix.
Whenever you want on
Yeah.
BitPix.
Yes.
Yeah.
So even if you have no excuse, even if you're not in Hollywood, please go on to BitPix. We will attach the link under what we publish on YouTube and Spotify, and from there you can go watch their film.
And very inspiring.
Yes. That's the best stuff. So
Great. Yeah.
thank you so much for joining us, Bill and
Thank you.
Ridgley, and we will see you around the festival.
Great, thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks everyone.
joining us.
Bye.
This has been another episode of Cinematography for Actors podcast. Follow us wherever you listen to your podcasts. We'll be here live from HollyShorts Film Festival through the 20th. And if you're here at the festival, come up to the VIP lounge and say hi.
We're so excited to have a ton of sponsors with us, helping us out to make this show live and possible. And so we'd like to thank Apogee, Film Tools, Roscoe, Lightstone Rentals, Canon, and First Mile Tech. Finally, as a gift to our listeners, all of those listeners, we have partnered with a company, We Make Movie, shooting more access, 10% off your quote. Thanks, everyone.
See ya.